Hey everybody, lovely to see you all on this full moon. Nina, are you in Sweden again? No longer, no longer Switzerland? And it'd be good, yeah, great to hear where people are actually tuning in from. So I always like to see who's tuning into these things, our random experiences that we put out. Today I'm speaking to Michael or speaking with Michael, and we're offering a session on leadership. And I'll be doing a singing bowl attunement for you in the realm of leadership later. But you're in Hertfordshire, England, and there's about 90 people who have signed up for this, but as ever, there's just a few smatterings of the good ones who come at the time, but you get the best bit. You get the actual live in-person vibration. So we've got a full moon in Leo.
Do you see that we have a real lion here? Can you see we have a lion here?
Oh yes, I see your lion.
He's real, just so you know.
It's a real one. It's funny. And I've got a panther here, which is, he arrived. And it was funny last night when I came into the flat this morning early. There was a massive black fluffy cat who'd come in so I thought, oh, how auspicious. There's an unknown lion in the house. Alora's in California. Great to see you guys. And I'm very excited today because the full moon in leadership, really what we're going to get to the frequency of today is what is leadership? And for you, what is your form of leadership? And I'm going to see if I can help you activate it a bit. I wanted to start by reading something about what the full moon in Leo is all about, just to give a context, and then to let Michael, or maybe I'll just let Michael, do you want to introduce yourself before we go into
the Leo context? I know
Leo
some of the
context?
people, but I can introduce myself
Great. Okay.
a little bit later. Yeah.
Sure. So there's more coming in now. Oh, great. There's Claudia, there's Alex. Excellent. So great to see you guys. So yeah, I always think it's interesting to see people who follow the moons will know that it's a peak of a cycle. So when you have a full moon, you've got the peaking of something. And in Leo, it's a very powerful moon. Also, it's very auspicious because it's the first moon of the year. And its catchphrase is, I will. So dramatic happenings, especially concerning emotions, being at the center of attention, exuberance, vitality, and working with patriarchal issues are all hallmarks of the Leo moon. It's a great time to set appointments within the system, as this is an excellent time to deal with old patriarchal issues and people who are in positions of authority and power. It's worth it to reset that appointment if you can. So basically she says that if you're going to have a confrontation tonight or today, it could be very dramatic with positions of authority. So if you feel you want to soften the blow of that, perhaps reset the calendar and do it on a different date. It's high drama with the moon in Leo as she steps out onto the stage to entertain us again. You'll probably want to act the drama queen or drama king, or just be romantic. This is a time of vital energy, affection, romance, and a Leo extravaganza where everybody is a star. Everyone is recognized for her particular power or his particular magnificence within. Enjoy the warmth of kindness and generosity, excitement and exuberance. Have a party, enjoy celebrations, and you will notice that you'll also want to spend some money during the moon in Leo. So we can start with that and then let Michael introduce himself.
You want me to introduce myself now? Is this the time? Yeah.
Would you like? Yeah.
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 Yeah. I just got involved. Well, I met Inarra, I don't know, a few months ago. I don't know, but I'm primarily doing instinctual work is my primary thing, and it's I believe that the instincts are your consciousness, not your ego consciousness. So Inarra and I were talking about what she was proposing, and we thought that the the instincts, one of the instincts are about relating, and they're about engaging with life. And there's a lot of abstraction in the world right now where we're not really engaging. We're kind of in these schizoid, narcissistic little windows on the internet, and we're not really experiencing life the way that we're really meant to through the instincts. And the instincts do have to deal with pleasure. They deal with a lot of other things. But I think there is an authority or an authorship that the instincts demand of us. There's a uniqueness that is demanded of us, and a purpose. The Greeks would call that telos. The teleology, or the purpose of a person, is predestined. Whether you believe that or not, the instincts they know where they want to go, whether you agree with them or not. And so I guess that would be my participation in this, would be maybe hinting or showing with the time that we have, that the instincts are alive and well. They have a much bigger bandwidth than we do. And I also think that in the context of the male and the masculine and the feminine, I do think that the instincts have a lot to say about that. And I think that there is an interesting masculine perspective that I can talk about the instincts, that doesn't necessarily change the dynamics of the reality that we find ourselves in. But I think it enlivens some misperceptions there might be, and I can at least speak on the masculine and the masculine's ability to relate to the feminine.
Yeah, and I would add that the context for this conversation is there is a group of people coming together around the topic of pleasure and leadership. And this is something which I think pre-COVID, I was thinking about what sets a great leader apart. And you can have leaders who just literally are people who speak to you off a stage in a very kind of cold manner. They have a cold authority to them. But the ones that really stand out for me have got this magnetism, and they draw you in to their world. They're quite welcoming. There's a hospitality to it, which really aligns with today's moon around Leo, which is that kind of leadership. It involves courage, but where does pleasure come in? The old paradigm would be that you work your whole life, just like the Industrial Revolution taught us. This is old patriarchy. You sacrifice yourself to your job or something. You don't take pleasure throughout. There's this little bit that you're supposed to have right at the end of your life, when pleasure comes in after all the hard work and the toil is done. Then you can take pleasure. And this causes leadership of a sort of hardened nature, like I will endure, I'm going to get through this. And actually, often things like family are sacrificed, relationships are sacrificed, you are sacrificed to that path. And what we want to bring in now is this energetic of pleasure throughout. So interweaving it with your leadership. And a very simple example would be, I teach a lot of my clients to break up the corporate model completely and instead to take moments of pleasure. So if your pleasure happens to be, say, nature, then make sure that you make time for that during the day. It's a simple practice, but it's a very different thing than being office-based all day. My pleasure is matcha latte, which a lot of people know. So I break out of anything that I'm doing to go for this ultimate matcha latte local to me, the best makers in London. And for me, it's not about the matcha. It's about, it represents so much. It represents that I'm putting myself first and that I'm going off, and this is time and space to create So just a little bit of a context about where we're coming from. We're a group of people who are speaking into pleasure, and Michael is coming to a retreat on the summer solstice, which is called the Path to Pleasure, and he'll be teaching there. So yeah, maybe you just want to speak into this as much as you want to.
Well, I'm more interactive, so if anyone, if I start talking about the stuff I'm doing, please ask questions, because I prefer to leg wrestle than to just talk and spew about, logical
Okay.
stuff.
Would anyone like to leg
That's a
wrestle?
very Leo thing too.
Yeah.
I can ask straight away, what's your take on the relationship between instincts and the senses? I really like that you bring in the instincts, because there's so much talk about pleasure and the senses, but how would you link the instincts with the senses? Because there has to be a link, I think.
Oh, I love that. I mean, absolutely. The way that I believe that the hierarchy, as it were, are set up, or maybe downstream. You have the ontological origin of something, and then everything's downstream from that. To me, the genome, or the DNA, is the primary function, and and I equate that it's so massive in its bandwidth, that it's really compared to our what I call the dominant ego mind. It's divine in nature. I would call it a soul code, the DNA, and what we're meant to, in this incarnation, do with it. And so that massive bandwidth goes down to the instincts, and then I will conceptualize that with the science of Jack Panksepp, with the Panksepian instincts. There's 7 of them that they found in the limbic brainstem, right? And those all have, going to your question, the names of those Panksepian instincts are all emotions. So there is no difference between the emotions and the instincts as far as our ability. That's how we're relating to the instincts. The instincts are speaking to our body, and they're speaking to our prefrontal cortex, which is the dominant ego mind. They're speaking them through the bandwidth and the language of emotions. The emotions carry massive bandwidth. Now, your instinctual consciousness, to get to go a little further, your instinctual consciousness can take in millions of bits of information per second. And on that emotional bandwidth, it's carrying so much of that. I would also suggest that I think that the instincts are speaking to the past genomic memory of your ancestors, and therefore to be even more provocative, I think that your prodigy is speaking to you.
I totally agree. That
In
is
the
like a live vortex, like just goes on into what is not time. Exactly. So beautiful. You bring in the emotions, like the missing link.
It's really everything. And so you'll notice that in the Western culture that's very schizoid and isolated and narcissistic, that all of those, even if you go into personality disorders, which I think most people are demonstrating some lack of ability of emotions to relate to people. It's really it's an instinctual, there's something that's gotten in the way of the instincts. So going to the million bits of data per second and even massive more amounts of information, the instincts are trying to be in a feedback system with the prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex, or the dominant ego mind, with the Miller number, can only hold 7 bits of information at any given time. It's called the Miller number, +2 -2. So that's why you have a 7 number telephone number here in the West. That's about much you can hold. Now you can hold a little bit more with your ego mind. That's called, that the Jung would call that a preconscious, and so you kind of know that there's 50 other things you need to do today, but you can't really name them unless you get the list out and look at it. So the reason that happens is because the prefrontal cortex is designed. There's two main neurological and kind of evolutionary reasons on why we have a prefrontal cortex the way it's designed. And it's getting to the emotion thing, believe it or not, Nina. It's designed to dissociate from the massive bandwidth. That's what it's designed to do. That's why you can have this massive bandwidth, and you can, and then the prefrontal cortex, where we think that's the origin of everything, and then somehow that will affect the instincts or the emotions, and will affect the instincts. That's not how it is. Milliseconds before your prefrontal cortex is activated to focus or to look at something or to be cued on something, the instincts have already fired. This is just neuroscience 101, right? So it's not how you affect the prefrontal cortex is not going to substantially change anything within how you think, or if you have neurotic behavior. I call them life symptoms, right? The reason it does that, the second reason, is that when the instincts come up against something that they've never dealt with before, which means a novel situation, we have adapted the ability to turn off the instincts momentarily so they can get information and readjust and do a new epigenetic thing on the spot and figure out how to adapt to that situation. So this is just it's simple what I just said, but it really is the function of the feedback system, right? And as soon as the prefrontal cortex has learned, has done its due diligence, has interacted with the new novel situation, it wants to put it into the long-term memory, the autopilot, the muscle memory. Once it gets in there, the prefrontal cortex has no access to it. It's now just autopilot. The only way that you can get access to that scripting is if you feel the emotions of the state that put the script in, right? So the emotions are everything. The problem is that emotions, the prefrontal cortex, because it's a dissociative model or mechanism, it can only deal with abstractions. The instincts only speak in emotion. There's a middle place, and in that middle place is where one of the things that you can do is that you can listen to people's dreams. That's one of the methods that I use primarily with Elethica. There's so many more you can enter, but the dream is the instinct sending the total iteration of your soul, of your experience, sending that into a story form that has a context and has images, and in that is built-in emotion. Those images are a hybrid that allow the abstracted nature of the prefrontal cortex to communicate. But you don't get any of the magic unless you become aware of the emotional content behind the dream. Mm-hmm. And once you start opening up that bandwidth, then the instincts can start to enliven your life and give it meaning, and start forcing you to adapt into the real world. And these instincts, the 7 Panksepian instincts, are the seeking system, the play system, rage, fear, lust. There's a pleasure function. Care is one. That's a pleasure function. And then there's one called anxiety and despair. All of them are for relating, though. Like, for instance, anxiety and despair, the thing about that instinct is that the reason that it's there is that it demands that you feel that someone will come and help you if you need it. And if they don't come, then you get anxiety to move towards the people who could help you. So
but I think this buckles up because you said enlivening. So for me, this is about enlivening and, coming back to life, because there is something with becoming robotic. There is something with the emotions and the instincts and the whole aliveness of the human vehicle that's sort of ebbing out. So for me, what you're talking about is so key to really where you know what can help humanity. Do we agree?
Rephrase that first part really quickly so I understand what you're saying.
You said that instincts are about enlivening, to making people come,
Yes.
to make things come alive, and
Yeah.
there is something with the life force ebbing out, and people, because you, for me also, even like with the pandemic, after that, it's like, even if you're now allowed to go out, it's like people are still sitting at home, things are not really getting going, there's something.
Yeah.
And as you're speaking, I think it's related to like something is not as strong in the instincts, in the emotions, and in the life force, which also is linked to creativity, which brings us back to Leo.
Right. Well, I think well, let's talk about post-COVID. I mean, as far as the dynamics that you just said, a lot of people got in touch with their emotions during that time because now, unfortunately, a lot of times when I deal with dreams with people, the emotional gatekeepers at the beginning of those neurotic scriptings that had nothing to do with the person's genome, it has to do with the trauma and the culture and the, you know, all the environment, right? There was a lot of emotion, but the gatekeepers in the beginning are going to be negative if you have trauma. The emotions are going to be unpleasant emotions. And that's what people were experiencing because the system wasn't online enough to create an artificial, instead of an ecology where the psyche and the body and the mind and the relationships can be in a feedback system. We're not in ecologies anymore. We're in economies, right? We're in these
Well,
artificial.
basically
Yeah,
everybody has trauma. It's so common that you have trauma. It's very few people that's sitting there in bliss. Most people are traumatized
in the West,
in the West.
we're all for sure. I can speak. We're all at some point. The systems are dynamic enough that we're all stunted in that way. So it's just a matter of where in your life it is, right? And so the thing is that this is a good to your point. I'll go back to the dreams really quick as an analogy. When you when you do dream work the way that I'm hoping to teach it to people, because you should be able to be experts of your own genomic code and soul, and you should be able to listen and be empowered by your own dreams. You should be an expert at your own dreams. That's my opinion. Um, the images in the dream are zip files of your massive instinctual consciousness. Your prefrontal cortex is never going to intellectualize the bandwidth. What the instincts do is say, if you relate to this zip file the way I'm presenting it, you will get the bandwidth. If there's a snake and you're terrified of it and your feeling is to run away from the snake, you have understood the bandwidth of neurotoxin, of snake speed, of your cellular, you know, degeneration by the poison. You know all of this information. There's no way you're going to be able to understand all of that in the seconds that it needs for you to get away from the snake, right? And so these little images are zip files. The problem that people were having when they were getting in line with their emotions, and they were mostly neurotic. The problem is that our dominant ego, our presentation, me as a 54-year-old, you know, Irish, Roman, English descent, you know, with a white beard, right? This is a zip file. If you want to access if you want to access who I am in my massive bandwidth, and we all have massive bandwidths, right? If you want to access it, you can't access the bandwidth. This ego is constructed, or this ego persona is constructed as a zip file like the dream for you to be able to interact with it. I'm afraid that not only there's a work of getting people to be re-engaged with their instinctual self, right, which is the emotions, but there's a work of reconstructing a dominant ego personality that is actually the correct zip file for who you are. So even if you have an emotional intensity, if you're presenting some other persona that's been given to you, no one's going to be able to interact with you in the fullness that you can have. I feel like I get I don't even know people when I go into the dream, and I feel like I've interacted with them more than most people have ever interacted with them. And it has nothing to do with superpowers. It has to do with just simple genomic instinctual presence where you just we're designed to relate to one another on a deep level. And I mean, you've got to feel that when you're around someone that allows that emotion to start to speak and stop judging it, and and all these crazy things, and seeing that it's trying to say something in the deeper part of your long-term memory, and it's want to unleash something. That's what the instincts are constantly doing. They're trying to replicate the traumas that gave bad scripting to you, so you can get into the state to get back to re-script it to the proper, mode that your instincts want. And this is emotions. You don't
Just
have to be
this,
you don't have to be a neuroscientist to understand this. You just have to listen to your emotions.
there's a lot of information in what you're saying, and I'm feeling the depth. And I have a sense that this topic, and I'm also speaking to you, Inarra, and the path to pleasure, were the event in the summer. This is so key to humanity's dilemma at this point, where things are really wobbly, and where are we going as a species? And these things that you are talking about and you're helping people with, it's key for even the survival of our species, as I see it.
Yes, I take it that's my calling. It is an evolutionary species survival function. Yes. And for me, my heartbeat in this is that I'm the primary motivation of this is revolutionary to me. I don't want to
Yes,
fight. I don't want to fight revolutions anymore. I think if you have people who are authentically fulfilling their genomic purpose, there's no way you can enslave a person. No way.
exactly.
And that just to kind of touch on the Leo, I'll use it as an analogous webbing, right? The Leo thing. In the Vedic system, the sun obviously in both systems, the sun rules Leo. The sun is a minor malefic because it doesn't really care what's going on. To me, it's really the instinctual wholeness. It's demanding something, and that's why the Vedics view it as a minor malefic. It will bring good, but it could also burn the crops too. It could also, right? It's very unflattering with the things that want to be hidden. And I think that the one of the hangups we have in the West, in the Indian culture, the sun is not the father, is not the patriarch. Jupiter is. The patriarchy is father, is a genuine father, guru, teacher, one that sacrifices. The sun is the authorities in general, the authority structures in general, if you deal with it that way. So I think that's an interesting way to look at look at that, in that the idea that authorities are really hierarchies. And I'm not talking about Jordan Peterson stuff. I'm saying we're engaged with different levels of our DNA wants to express itself in the prefrontal cortex of the dominant ego personality as a zip file, and it will relate, and it will put itself with the other personalities appropriately. But it can only do that. This is the solar Leo thing, right? It can only do that if you're expressing the true identity of who you are, the true creative identity. And then you have this fecundity of creativity that's happening between the people, and it's an exponential growth function. So the authority is really just a level of, for instance, let's go to the rage instinct. The rage instinct is a relating instinct. The rage instinct says my genome says that I should demand this type of relationship with this type of intellectual community, and this is how my relationship is with someone who maybe doesn't have the same IQ, and this is my relationship, and it knows how to relate. This is my relationship with someone who I have no idea what their culture is, right? it knows how to do it in a very human and connected way. That's what it wants to do. But rage is when the culture or the authorities or individuals are not accepting you in your genomic place, how you want to relate. You have to hold that position. So it's not about anger. It's about holding the position that your birthright and how you're supposed to relate to the world around you.
It's interesting. I didn't know that the sun was a minor malefic in the Vedic astrology, but today, with a full moon, we have a square between Jupiter and the sun, like actually in the sky. So it's really, the patriarchy. What is it really, that the sun and Jupiter in like an angle that's difficult to.
Well, I also think if we're going to use this as an analogy, it's also interesting that Rahu is conjunct with Jupiter in that. And so what I'm trying to decide, what you're going to find if you haven't got this already, I think that the masculine is beautiful. I think Jupiter is beautiful, and I think a minor malefic is beautiful, and I think Mars is a malefic, and I think he's beautiful. I think we need to differentiate between what the masculine can really do, and I think that it's going to be a surprise when we start more of us start coming online. It's going to be a surprise. Some of it's going to be great, and some of it's going to be, oh, I didn't know that, and you have to put your seatbelt on. But what we also have to deal with is that Rahu influence was in the West is your North Node. Now in the Vedic system, that's a shadow planet. It's a shadow graha. So it's one of illusion and desire and whatever and pleasure. And so this is a very interesting, the Leo, the pleasure thing that Inarra is doing. The Rahu, you're talking about the square as an analogy to the sun. We need to be discriminatory as far as how we deal with these things. We can't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
We're opening up a space for a deep discussion, and it's not only discussion with words; it's an energetic exchange around sort of shifting these energies around for humanity. Thanks to you, Inarra, who took the initiative to this call.
Well, I was going to just pick up something that you were saying there, that as we're entering the age of Aquarius, one of the distinctions between leadership or authority is that we are all leaders. So that goes back to what you're talking about. If we are all utterly genuine and able to experience ourselves as such, and some of the metaphors that you use, I'm struggling with at times, right? To really totally get you. I think I do get you, but I'm just saying I have to do something in my head to understand the metaphors. But if we are completely and utterly authentic to our path, then there is absolute freedom. There cannot be.
Yes.
Now, within that, there's all the how do you move between people with rage? How do you might want to talk a little bit about what you were talking about with men or the masculine the other day. You were saying about the rage, and then let's swing over to the pleasure. Because I think actually rage and pleasure are almost, I don't know if they're opposites actually, but they could be perceived as opposites. So let's talk about masculine expressing rage, divine masculine expressing rage. And you were talking about women, or the divine feminine is going to have to receive that.
I think it's not a receiving problem. I think it's I think that the feminine, let me see if I can put it in this way. I think the feminine has been holding space for so long and waiting for the masculine to show up. This is not true all the time, but I think she's been holding space for so long that I think she's created the ideal masculine in her own image, the one she's expecting to show up. That's what I'm referring to that. That if we're talking about the male or female, that solar type of instinctual authenticity, it's going to be different than what we're wanting, because we're all uniquely ourselves. So for instance, let's talk about the rage and the lust dynamic with the instincts. In the limbic system, you have two sides of it, right? I mean, two major sides. You have the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. So sex, the sexual relationships that we have, and we get into that state, is parasympathetic. So it brings the energy down and it brings the dominant ego boundaries down, and there's this connection. Well, that's also the same function when you're doing your when the saints say they're in ecstasy with God, and that kind of stuff, because you're breaking the ego barrier down and opening up. Now, the bonding, the chemicals and the processes that go with intimate bonding, pair bonding, are actually formed in the sympathetic nervous system, in the fight or flight system. So that's where you have, with certain species, you have mock rituals where they defend themselves, or they attack each other, or they attack other. They're wanting to do pair bonding because they need to protect each other, and they need to protect their offspring from the threats that are on the outside. And so the bonding is more of a structure. And we don't really, we actually think that sex is doing the bonding, and that the intensity or the minor malefic of the sun is actually something bad and would do away from it. So I think that's one of the neurotic functions where people who are intimate with each other get in all these arguments, because they don't understand, they don't know how to, they're trying to undo that all the time, as opposed to become conscious of what it's wanting to do. It's wanting to hold that relationship as a union, as its own kind of third. It's wanting to hold it in that social, in that hierarchy, and like, this is what we are, this is who we are, and it's got to be protected. But if you don't know that, and you think it's just, well, the only way that we connect with each other is through sex and intimacy and openness and crying, then you're missing the whole pair bonding function, right? And so where does that rage go? Well, it ends up going at each other, and all these weird passive aggressive and then over the top and abuse and all kinds of stuff. So to me, do you see what I'm saying? It's not a receptive thing, and it's not saying women are wrong and men are wrong. It's just saying we're so disconnected from our instincts. We have no way to deal with these emotions and with these what we view as stressors. And then when you look at lust, we're designed to have sex. I mean, it's just the way it is. Now you have a whole culture where men aren't even having sex anymore. Women aren't either, really. But they're more likely to be able to have it, just because of the way I'm not going to get into all that, the neuroscience of that. But my point is that there's an epidemic of men from 18 to, it's something like 35. I can't remember the number, but they're just not having sex anymore. You can't thwart the instincts like this. This is a horrible mechanism. So then what do you have? Well, you have a schizoid, narcissistic society that's completely disconnected, but the instinct still demands itself. But you can't have that intimacy where the ego boundaries dissolve, whether it's sexual, or whether it's personal friendships, or whether it's the intimacy, you can have deep intimacies with just minor contacts. I mean, obviously you're not going to have sex with just the cashier at the thing, but I mean, there's a richness of encountering people, right? The way it's given. And if you don't have that, where does, say, for instance, the lust instinct go? Well, you have to, in order to really get into those calming parasympathetic nervous system functions, you need to develop safety. You need to develop trust. You need to develop, are we compatible intellectually? Or where is that at, right? That takes time. So what you do is that you need to have lust as quickly as possible, because we live in a schizoid narcissistic culture. So we don't have time to build relationships. We don't even know how to do it. So what would take a year to do, you can do in 20 minutes and take ecstasy. What would take 6 months to do, you can go out and get drunk, and you can have all the sex that you want. because you're mimicking, the drug is mimicking what a year or 6 months of intimacy and safety and calmness and fighting and that, you know, iron on iron, right? You're it's mimicking that by just removing all of that resistance and getting to what would happen if you did the process. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Although I don't know why you're saying people aren't having sex or men aren't having sex. I mean, I think one of the biggest inhibitors is religion, for instance. It's, you know, there's so many no sex rules, etc., in fundamentalist religion, but in the world, my opinion would be that men have way more sex than women.
No,
So I'm interested. No, really?
no.
Well, I need to catch up with that. But
Temper. I would say, well, now we're going to get it now. You know, I don't know if we should get into this now, but now we're getting into the biology of pair bonding species and touring species when it comes to sex. And because we're a hybrid and we have a prefrontal cortex, we can choose as a culture epigenetically how, if we want to go more to the touring versions of procreation, or if we want to go into pair bonding. I would I not only suggest the irony in what you just said, Inara, is that the fundamental religious people are actually having sex.
okay.
But I think it's true. I think that the sex drive is
Used to
quickly,
be.
rapidly dwindling, and that's pretty serious. And I think it has
Yes.
some biological relationship with the diminishing sperm count. There's something happening in the subtle bodies in humanity, which is like a weakening of the life force that you are speaking to, Michael. This thing that we are losing contact with instincts. I'm a child psychiatrist. I've been working in child psychiatry for 20 years, and I see the quality of the subtle bodies of the children. They are becoming more and more like, you know, vegetables who are, you know, 2 weeks too old. So the vitality of the human species is going down, and people are having less sex because they don't have a sex drive anymore. And I think this is a very key issue, and I think we're speaking to that, and we will, like, on the path to pleasure. So this is so much more, actually, I'm realizing now, than just, you know, becoming your best leader. It's basically the surviving of humanity the way we know it now.
No, that's amazing, because I believe that the instincts are so good at adapting, and they're so good at relating to the other adapted instincts of the other humans around us. We're so good at coming together and making things happen, right? That the only way that the forces, whatever you want to attribute those forces to be, that can keep us in this depleted state that you were referring to, Nina, that it has to be an all-on biopsychosocial attack. It has to be in the genome. It has to be in the diet. It has to be in the deconstruction of how we think. It has to be the inversion of everything. Like, every component has to be there. If it breaks down just a moment, the instincts are that people are able to move, right? They're able to do things. That it's such a powerful component. And it's the same thing that happens, for instance, with the dream work. You just get a little bit of a touch of the instincts reconnected, and it just starts breaking everything down.
I do appreciate, I mean, it's a loaded topic, but you say biopsychosocial attack, and I actually think that's what it's about. I know it's loaded, but I don't think you will get by that, or you sort of, you can't forget or not see that part of it.
Yeah, well, that's one of the issues that I have. I can go in and make space in the psychological part, the psyche, the soul, right? But if the person in that moment, they're connected to their instinctual consciousness, the same situation that just happened, that they were all the situations that were making them a neurotic mess that they were in, within 10, 15, whatever the time limit is, they're completely in a state of kind of wholeness and emotional. This is emotive power. It's an experience, right? Because it's not, you can't, the brain can't hold the bandwidth, right? None of their situation changed, but they're whole, they're connected. And in that moment, if they could sustain that, they could really start to engage with life. And these void things, these illusions, these delusions, the Rahu thing energy out there, will just completely start to, decompose, or the shadows would be no more shadow. There would be light there, right? You, what were we saying? I started webbing. I'm sorry, I'll do that every once in a while. I'll start webbing into stuff. Oh, the problem is that even if you have this, these people have had 20, 30, 40, 50 years of trauma creating their relationships with people. So they can be in that state. But if all of the social relationships and the environment around them is attacking them, and I mean, against who they are, you have to deal with the social side. And if they're sick in any type with this type of DNA problems, or what I would call another issue is transduction. Trauma creates transduction physical issues. I think a lot of the itises and the syndromes and the undifferentiated illnesses, the idiopathic illnesses, are really transduction of trauma. That's because they're all unique and the soul is unique. So you can't, just because I can do the psychological thing. Now I'm trying to figure out how do we adapt that out and immediately get inroads into the biological situation that they're in, the poisoning that's happening. How can we quickly get some footing in some social relationships? So now the social thing I can do, because I actually can act as a surrogate social model that's enlivening, right? And so that's a little footing that can go a long way. But you have to start developing the biological and your social environment. That has to be on the forefront if you're really trying to become whole. Just doing it psychologically or in your imagination isn't going to cut it now.
Very shortly, I'm just going to mention these kids that I see, and they're like, 14, 15. They live with their devices like this, like day out, day in. They bred on sugar. They have 15 kilos overweight, like a little bit of high blood pressure. They're 14 years old. There are more things to this, but if you just start with that one, also they biologically so handicapped, of course, with whacked up hormones and things, because the hormones is also very related to emotions. They will not have the sort of biological hardware to do the work, which is one handicap already.
Yep. Oh no, we're coming. I mean, these poor children, by the time they're 5, their system has been so loaded with fight or flight and confusion and gaslighting that their whole body is completely messed up. Even it causes neuropathies. It causes all the the ADHD. These are all just trauma responses. It's really a horrible thing. I really do think getting in touch with the instincts is the antidote to being in front of a phone. It's the rat thing, where they did they gave the rats one rat water or opium, and they chose the opium. But if you put a rat into a rat community where they're having sex and playing all the time, they don't pick the opium.
Oh, really? I didn't know that one.
Yeah, they don't pick the opium. But for a long time, we based all of our psychology on, well, we need to deal with the fact that if you give someone the opportunity to just space out and go into the other world, they'll do it because life is too hard. And it was only because the poor rat was isolated.
Yeah, because if you create an opportunity to have a life that is not too hard, people are going to choose life.
The instincts choose life. They don't choose schizoid, isolated, and narcissistic self-reflective functions. They want to relate to other people. They want to experience the fullness of other people, and they want to have sex, and they want to play, and they want to bang up against shit. And if you allow a species to do that, they will not take drugs. They will not drug themselves in front of a video thing. There's no power. It's all smoke and illusion.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna bring in just we're gonna move direction at this point, but I think it's a great place that we've stopped at just here, because actually to me that feels very hopeful. If you can infuse, and as leaders as well, if you can take a little bit of this what can you do in the world to alter it, to bring in the instincts? And for me, it's all about bringing in pleasure. And I don't just mean sexual pleasure, I mean the pleasures. There are so many of them. Find your pleasures and go enjoy them, you know, like that, rather than just be on a phone or whatever. It's funny because yesterday I was coming out of a yoga class and it's up a bunch of stairs. And I've noticed now that as we leave the yoga class, some people, there's just this resistance. And it's because the millisecond they're out of the class, they're on the phone, right? Doing text, walking down these stairs. So there's like a pile up going on. It's just it's behavior that's just becoming very obvious. So it's like, we can change this stuff. I feel very empowered about it. And what I want to do now is a couple of things. Say thank you. That was an amazing conversation. If you are enjoying this kind of conversations, there are a group of us who are really involved in the path to pleasure. And I'm going to put up, yeah, Guillaume, you don't look at your phone that much? That's good. I look at my phone a lot, but I turn it off at night. It's like I have real structure around what I do with the phone. I'm going to put in the group chat. I want to actually just put in the link to the event that's happening this summer. And then I want to take you on a journey, which is very different. We're going on a kind of trance-induced journey. And I will be transmitting leadership symbols to you. So whoever you are and whatever you're doing in life, what we want to do today is increase your frequency of leadership, the potential that you have there. So let me see if you can see this. Is this going out to everybody? That is the event in the summer. Can you guys see that? Just somebody put a thumb up. Yeah, you can. Okay, great. And I did notice earlier that we missed some comments. Roberta was talking about masturbation is becoming the norm more than real sex, but I have to say, come on, it's better than looking at your phone, right? Or it's perhaps better than virtual reality sex that somebody was telling me about the other day. In Japan, it's becoming a whole thing where it's like cartoon based sort of porn with, you know, I don't know what it's called, but masturbation still is pleasure, you know, at least.
Yeah.
So go masturbate. That's my message today. And Guillaume was saying more men are no longer, they're sort of diminishing the male power. I'm not sure. I mean, many of the men that I know really have authentic power. So perhaps that's it. It's like the authenticity piece that we need to tap into and not try and be someone else.
I think,
So
can I say something? Can I say something really quick about the masturbation?
yeah,
This is
please do.
this is the solar this is the sun as a minor malefic. But what I'm about to
Masturbation.
what I'm about to say about it.
Oh, okay.
It's good and it's bad. I think we don't want to shame people for being sexual.
Yeah.
I don't think we want to shame people for having a society that completely has destroyed us psychologically, and that has left men limited to masturbation. At the same time, it would really be great if these young men could do some pair bonding and start loving on a woman and start having sex, and it would really be good for the females.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't. It to me, it's
Bring it
just
on.
simple. It's just simple. It's not a hard. It's not a hard understanding.
Yeah.
But it's really about. But we're talking about men here. But it's really about any how you're going to express that. There's a lot of shame and there's a lot of guilt around this, and that's really not where it should be. Because the sun is authority and it's demanding something, doesn't mean that should be the model we're using for sex and masturbation. There's a planet called Venus. You'd probably be better off doing that,
Yeah.
or Mars.
Yeah.
So anyways, just to throw that out, I think there's a nuanced thing with masturbation, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. I mean, from my assessment.
To be continued.
Yes.
It's a very juicy topic.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take you on a journey. And for all of you, just allow yourself to turn off shut down. If you want to take your screen off, that's fine, but find a comfortable place to sit. Take 3 deep breaths, really deeply. So breathing in the energy of today, breathing in the energy of this conversation, and then just letting it go. And using the exhalation with your mouth open. So breathe in through the nose. And as you exhale, exhale through your mouth. And again, in through the nose. And exhale through the mouth. And then I'm going to take you through a bit of a stretch with breathing, just bear with it. But this is altering your frequency completely. So just follow along. If you're a yogi or you're used to breath work, you'll find it easier. For those who are not used to it, just have a go. So we're going to break the breath into 4 parts. So breathe into the belly, side ribs, back, upper chest, and then sip the breath. Sip the breath, sip the breath again, and hold. So you're holding your breath, but now relax your body and relax your face. And you hold it for as long as you possibly can. And when you breathe it out like shaman's breath. And then take a normal breath in between just to regulate. And again, inhale belly, side ribs, back, upper chest, then sip, sip, and sip again, and hold. And really allow your body and face to relax, but feel the holding power. It's like this little part of you which is building capacity to hold, while all around you is like jelly, very soft. And when you need to breathe out, breathe out. And then regulating breath again. And one more time. So breathing into the belly, side ribs, back, upper chest, sip, sip, and sip again, and hold. And just allowing yourself to hold as long as you possibly can. And feeling how perhaps the third one you were able to do a little more. Hold the capacity. And then breathe it out. And now just breathe regularly, keeping your eyes shut for the whole of the experience. So inviting you to go to a place in your mind's eye, a place in nature that you absolutely love. It can be anywhere on the planet. It can be any season, any temperature. And notice the colors that you see, and feel that when you're breathing into every cell of your body. So breathing those colors in, and feel them feeding you at the deepest level. And as you listen in this space, notice if you can hear any sounds in nature. Maybe some bird calling, the sound of the wind, sound of the ocean if you're there. And then see if you can pick up a scent. Can you smell something from this beautiful place? And as the wind gently blows your hair and on your skin, you look down at the earth that you're standing on in order to see where you are And as you bend over and look down, you realize that you are naked. And as you stand up again, the feeling is of immense freedom and immense safety. So this beautiful mixture of being absolutely free and absolutely safe. And to the left of you, there is a tree, and hanging in the tree is a robe. And this is the robe of authority. It will either be the king or queen's robe, depending upon what you're seeking. So walking over to this tree, you pull the robe off the branches, and then you slide it over your arms, and you feel it slide down, enveloping your body. And this robe is the king or queen's robe. Notice the color. And notice if there is a breastplate with any symbolism on it. You feel the texture of the fabric, and you know that this is made by some of the most exquisite artisans on the planet. This robe has been made exactly perfectly for you and fits you perfectly. And as you look down again at the ground, you see this nature trail going off into the distance, and you feel compelled to walk on it. With your bare feet, every step, your connection to the earth feels delicious. You go at the pace that you feel is perfect, strolling, relaxed, experiencing nature. But something in your mind tells you also, this is a very important path that you're walking. This is the path of kings and queens, and thousands have gone before you. And you're being invited to a very sacred place. Understanding that makes you start to move with momentum. You pick up the pace, and as the path winds down the hill and around the side of a great hill, you see in the distance a beautiful mountain, not too high, but perfectly formed. And you start to pick up your pace even more. There's a feeling within you that you want to get there. And you become aware that there is a great gathering of people later. So you start to jog. And this feeling of jogging, the momentum of moving towards this mountain, you start to see it come closer and closer and closer. As you reach the bottom of it, from this perspective, it looks much higher than you thought. And you experience this feeling of, how am I going to get to the top? It looks craggy. The pathway as it goes off has sheer jutting stone on both sides of it. It no longer looks as peaceful as the path that you've been on, but determined to follow the way up to the top. You start to climb, and using your hands too. You have this feeling in you that you must get to the top. As you start to walk around the edge of this mountain, you are met with the guardian of this place, who arrives as an animal. At first you can't quite see what it is, but it brushes against your hand, and you get a first touch of the guardian of this place that has come to greet you. And gradually you become very familiar with what it is. Notice who has come to greet you. And the guardian tells you that there's a great assembly happening today, and that the king and the queen are going to be delivering an audience. You pick up your pace, and the guardian now moves in front of you, trotting or flying, depending upon what it is, just ahead of you. And there's this feeling of being taken on an adventure, being welcomed into a space. And as you climb round the final pathway to the very top of the mountain, the guardian presents you as you come over the precipice, saying, "The king has arrived," or "the queen has arrived." You realize that there are thousands of people waiting for you, and that right in the center, at the top of this mountain, there's a plinth which you clearly are expected to go up and make some kind of speech to the huge assembly that is waiting for you. And there's a hushed silence, and your heart is beating because you don't quite know what you're going to say. But what you feel as you look into the eyes of all the different people who have gathered to see you, there's this warmth and this fascination. Some of them are smiling, some of them are laughing with you, but there's great joy, and everybody who is with you wants you to be on that plinth tonight. And so in the few moments that you have going all the way up to this very sacred place and speaking in front of all these people, you have the moment to determine what is your strongest leadership quality. This is the gathering of leaders. And within the few moments that you have, as your guardian turns around and says, "Prepare yourself," you have a moment to draw within your resources and to really feel what it is that you want to say to this large group of humanity as a leader. So allow yourself to experience what it is that you want to say. What is your message? This will be the thing that you arrived on the planet to do and to say. It is the deepest level of soul calling. And it doesn't matter how you say it, but the audience is waiting for you to say something. And so you climb the few steps up onto this plinth. The perspective at the top is magnificent. Not only are you staring into the eyes of thousands of people who are so happy you're there, but you're also able to take in the landscape of the many mountains behind this mountain, this high point, this feeling of being at the top of the world. And as you prepare slightly by standing in your strongest, most powerful position, taking a few breaths, you then open your mouth and tell your audience what it is that you came here to tell them, what it is that you're here to do, and to introduce yourself as the leader that you are. Allow yourself to feel the words forming before the words they are thoughts. Before they are thoughts, they are visions. Feel the vision that brought you into life itself. Feel the connection. that you have with humanity. There is no way and nothing that can cause you to go wrong. Tapping into this deepest connection that you have with your soul purpose, speak and allow yourself to experience what your audience feels. So make a point of looking into their eyes, seeing their faces, receiving your message, receiving you. And when you've finished, there is an incredible roar goes up with the audience. People are cheering and clapping and celebrating. And as you take a moment to receive this and experience your leadership, you look around you and you look up above you and you see the huge full moon shining down upon you, connecting in with its energy and feeling this was the moment that you were called forward. And then light of heart, stepping off the plinth and feeling arms touching you and holding you and gathering around you, people carrying you off for a great celebration. Experience what it's like to be adored, to be deeply loved by these humans. And allow yourself to be carried off with them. Holding this energy, feeling what this feels like. Breathe it in and exhale. And another one of those, deep breath in and exhale. And then rubbing your hands, generating heat. Placing your palms over your closed eyes, breathing in and exhale. And then rubbing your temple, your hair, back of the neck, front of the throat, heart, solar plexus, belly, and then brushing the energy all the way down through your legs and taking a moment to just feel what that feels like. And gradually coming back into the space. And so for all of you who are leaders, we are our own leaders now, feel the energy of how potent your message is, of how potent you are. I see some of you coming back in, and I just want to say thank you so much to Michael. You're muted. Hang on, can I mute you? You need to unmute. Oh, there you go.
I enjoyed being here. I think I would even need more time so people could throw out questions. We didn't really get to work the audience, as it were.
No. It was still an hour and 15, and we still need more. But
Yeah.
we'll do it again. And really enjoyed all that you brought to this conversation on the path to pleasure. And anybody want to say anything now? We're a minute over time, but we are open if you want to say anything. Any of the audience? Just unmute. Or not.
Yeah, it was nice to see everyone. Some of the people I know, but
Great. Thank you. Graciela, I don't know if I'm saying it right, but pleasure, who just said that was radiant. Thank you for combining pleasure, leadership, and the divine feminine, masculine, very powerful. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. And for anyone who sees this as a recording, sending you much blessings, many blessings, and happy full moon. This is the first full moon of the year. And this energy that we've put out there is a guiding light that goes all the way throughout the year. And for anybody who's interested in potentially coming to the retreat, please get in touch with us. We'd love you to be here. Michael's coming all the way over from California to Cornwall, England. It's going to be amazing. And yeah, sending love, love, love. Priya, thank you very much. Nice to have you here. And I'll see you at some point in the future.
it was nice meeting everyone. Thank you.